Oh, we've done that too. Okay? Science continually proves itself wrong. And the more science goes down the track, the more they're realizing that what the spiritualists are saying is actually true. Because this universe does not exist in reality. It only exists in perceived reality. You know, you can watch a film. What you're watching now is just dots of light reflecting on your retina. I'm not real. I'm not real. I'm just dots of light. But if you perceive it to be real, then you will believe that I'm a real person telling you real things. But it's not. It's a perception. It's part of that choosing to experience. It's part of the illusion. The current Illuminati or the original Illuminati? Because there was, the name Illuminati originally came from being illuminated, i.e. aware, awakened of the truths of it. And as happens in all the time, power corrupts. And within that there are a group of people who wanted they had a better vision of the world. And they felt that the only way that they could do that was to control the people. But in doing that, the ultimate power corrupts everything. So they became controlling to the point where they believe that they're right and everyone else is wrong. Now, and they also are very much controlled by the Dracos in terms of their agendas. And they've worked their way through and they control every government, every major corporation, you name it, it's all controlled, and it all filters back to a handful of families. And it's all to do with the bloodline. So we're talking about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the JP Morgans, the royal families of Egypt, royal families of Europe. They're all tied into this bloodline. And that bloodline happens to be reptilian. It's a reptilian bloodline. And that's why we're so aware of people like George Bush and the Queen and that being able to shapeshift. People have seen them doing these reptilian shifts and going, whoa, because they're of that bloodline. So they're controlling everything through fear. What's their agenda? Ultimately, their agenda is they want to get into the fifth dimension. But along the way, it's all about just control everything and keep the sheeple as sheeple. Ultimately, the Dracos are at the top of the tree. They've been around in this universe for about 4 or 5 billion years, and because they've been around that long, they think they own this universe. And they go from planet to planet like a locust. You know, they'll go there and they strip it of all of its resources. And if there's a population there, they just infest themselves until they control the population. And then they strip the planet of its resources. So they're like a plague of locusts that go around, and they believe they have a right to do all of this. So they can do whatever they want. And they've genetically engineered the human race as a Trojan horse to try to get into the upper realms. Because they're fear-based and they're reptilian, it's like the reptilian brain we have, which is about pure survival and control and manipulation and all of those things, survival of the fittest and all of that, and lacking in emotion. They don't have emotion. So they can't access higher realms. But because they want to control everything, they think, well, we can't have a dimension in this universe that we can't control. So we have to control it. We have to invade it. We have to do what we do. So that's their agenda. It's not right or wrong. It's just that's their way of thinking. You know, we say when we see a snake attack a rabbit and kill it, the snake's not doing anything evil. It's just doing what a snake does. So the Dracos aren't evil. That's a judgment that people put on them. Okay, they're not evil. They're just doing what they do. And they're fulfilling the role of being the fear-based thing for the third dimension. They're playing out the bad guy that we need to experience stuff in the third dimension. Because if we didn't have that, there would be no third dimension. We'd all be in fifth dimension going, isn't everything wonderful? Their physical form and spiritual form, because they're lower fourth dimensions, which means they can be in third dimension, fourth lower fourth dimension. So they're capable of shape-shifting. So there will be a physical reptilian form, but they will look to you as if they're human. They can also, their consciousness can oversee a physical human form, like a shadow. Okay, so see, we get so locked into thinking that our human body is solid. And science tells us it's not. It's 99.9% space. Okay, but we perceive it solid because of our own filters. So therefore it's quite possible for another entity to exist in the same space that you exist. And if your switches are switched on, then they can control you through those, like a remote control. But if you flick those switches off, they can't control you. In order to switch off the DNA, because within your DNA you've got all sorts of different switches, and it's like a giant airplane cockpit. They're everywhere. You know, some of them are the thrusters, some of them are the navigators, some of them is a fuel gauge to see how much energy you've got. They've all got a purpose. And some of those switches are reptilian, that says, well, we're going to totally control everything through the reptilian switches. So the way to do it is you do a visualization, a meditation, whatever it is you want to do, and you go in there and you physically find those switches and you flick them off. You turn them off. And once they're turned off, they can't activate. If you want to, you can rip the whole wiring out. Whatever you want to do to deactivate that, you can. And then you can look around and you can find the aspects of your higher self. You know, they might be over here glowing in gold, and you flick them on and turn them on full, so that you allow yourself to be in a full level of awareness. Because it's all there. You can do whatever you want. It's your cockpit. If we had a whole lot of 9-foot tall reptilians walking around the planet, people would freak out. Okay? So what better way to control the masses than to have an organization of hybrid forms that appear to be human but are totally controlled by you, or you're part of their running their agenda, and they do all the dirty work for you under the guise of being good. See, we have a United Nations, and the United Nations is a Drakos-run organization. But if you tell the people they're doing good things and you publicise, and this is where controlling the media helps as well, if you publicise all of the good things that you do here, while at the same time you're totally ripping the shit out of everything down here, people only see that. Because very few people will dig deeper to find out what's really going on. Very few people have dug deep to understand that the AIDS virus and Ebola virus and swine flus and all these things were actually created by these people. And it's documented. It's documented that the World Health Organization, which is an offshoot of the United Nations, they created these viruses for a purpose, to pull the population down. They have an agenda to bring the world population down. But most people don't dig any deeper. They lead superficial lives. People just have to dig around for themselves. You know, go onto YouTube. Take everything with a pinch of salt. You know, don't believe everything that you see, everything you hear, but importantly, don't disbelieve it either. Run it through your own filters. And you know, there's a simple thing. If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. You know, the most simple answer is usually the most appropriate one. So the more that you're seeing bullshit and the more your stuff doesn't seem to add up, go deeper. There'll be a reason behind it, why somebody's trying to hide something. And often it's not what people tell you, it's what they don't tell you. And this is where NASA is brilliant, because NASA, you know, will tell you some things, but then they won't tell give you an image of a single-celled organism compared to the whole planet. That the single-celled organism is really only aware of its immediate environment. Well, we're the single-celled organism. And in fact, we're not even the single-celled organism, because our Earth is a consciousness. The same way that we think that our body is we're one consciousness. But every single cell in our body is an individual organism. It can function on its own. It has mitochondria and all these things in it. It's a separate consciousness. That's why you can take the heart out of something and it keeps beating, because it's still got a consciousness about it, and parts of the body will still move. They have this residual consciousness. But over the top of that, we have an imposed consciousness of ourself. Okay, so we control all of these individual things. We're the head of it all. Well, Gaia, Earth consciousness, is the same. It controls all the consciousnesses on the planet. And the Sun, because the Sun is 99% of the mass in our solar system, it is the overseeing consciousness that controls all the planets and all the things in our solar system. Well, our solar system is a blip in the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy has a consciousness that oversees all of the solar systems in our Milky Way galaxy. And our Milky Way galaxy is part of a local cluster of galaxies which has a consciousness. And that local cluster has a consciousness. And that local cluster is part of an even bigger and bigger and bigger. So where does it all end? Specifically relevant to us, there is a galactic federation, for want of a better term, which is a group of 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th dimensional existences who oversee what happens in this galaxy. And the overriding rule is that free will must apply. That no one is allowed to interfere with the free will of any being. Everyone is allowed to express whatever they want to express. That does not negate cause and effect. Okay, if you jump in a fire, you get burnt, cause and effect. If you kill someone, someone may retaliate against you. You know, there's cause and effect. If you break your arm because you do things, there's cause and effect. But it's not right or wrong. The higher consciousnesses have this guardianship to ensure that free will happens. But they understand, for instance, that the Drakos are playing the role they have to play as the bad guy, because we see ourselves as a good guy, and so they allow that to happen. It's more, the galactic federations are more funnels of consciousness. Does that make sense? That the information funnels in one